The door to Le Jardin door closed in Marcus's face with a sharp sound that echoed like a slap. The security guard, a giant in a black suit who looked like he had been trained to intimidate, crossed his arms over his chest and repeated, almost bored, "Reservations sold out, good night." Marcus looked at his watch. 7:47 p.m. Your reservation was confirmed for 8 p.m. He showed his cell phone, the screen glowing with the confirmation email sent 3 weeks ago. The man didn't even blink. Like I said, exhausted. Behind the frosted glass of the entrance, Marcus could see empty tables. 4, 5, 6, all with spotless white tablecloths, fresh flowers and crystal glasses waiting for customers who had not yet arrived. A waiter passed by carrying a silver tray, moving with unnecessary haste through a room that was too empty to justify such a rush. Marcus took a deep breath, feeling the tightness in his chest that he knew well, that familiar knot, half anger, half resignation. "Can I speak to the manager?" The security guard smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the kind of smile powerful people give when they know they can do whatever they want without consequences. The manager was very clear. "This establishment has a standard clientele. And you." He left the sentence hanging in the air, his eyes deliberately going down Marcus's body, lingering on his prominent belly, his wide thighs, his thick neck. "Does not fit this pattern." Marcus was 38 years old. He was 1.75 tall and weighed 142 kilos. He wore a tailored navy blazer, because off-the-shelf clothes never fit right, and Italian shoes that cost more than most people earned in a month. Her hair was combed back, her perfume discreet but expensive. He was fat. It always was. And his whole life had taught him that for some, that was crime enough. But that night was different. That night was his and Sarah's wedding anniversary. 10 years. An entire decade since she said yes to a man the entire world judged by size before knowing character. She was in the car, waiting, adjusting her lipstick in the rearview mirror, excited because Marcus had promised a surprise. He had planned everything: French champagne, lobster and truffle butter sauce, a flamed dessert served in the dim light. I had mentally rehearsed the toast I was going to make. Now, he imagined going back there and saying they couldn't get in. He imagined the disappointment on her face trying to look understanding, the way she would touch his arm and say, "It's okay, love, we'll find another place." He imagined, once again, swallowing the humiliation in silence, pretending it didn't hurt. "No, not this time. I understand," Marcus said, his voice low, controlled. He reached into the inside pocket of his blazer and pulled out a graphite gray business card with raised gold lettering. He handed it to the security guard calmly. "You might want to show this to your boss before making any hasty decisions." The man took the card with 2 fingers, as if it were something dirty. "Read." He frowned. He read it again, more slowly this time. "Marcus Hale, CEO, Hale Capital Group," below the name, an address in Manhattan, a telephone number with an international prefix, a corporate website that anyone with access to Google would recognize in seconds. The security guard looked up in disbelief. For an instant, just an instant, Marcus saw the hesitation, the doubt, the fear of having made a huge mistake. But then the man returned the card with a forced smile. "That doesn't change anything. The rules are the rules." Marcus took the card back and put it away slowly without rushing. He looked the security guard in the eyes, and something in his expression changed. It wasn't anger. It wasn't despair. It was something worse. Certainty. "You're right," Marcus said, his voice strangely calm, almost gentle. "The rules are the rules. And tomorrow, when I own this building, I'm going to make sure my rules are very clear." The security guard gave a short, disbelieving laugh. "Of course. Good luck with that." Marcus turned his back and walked to the car parked on the sidewalk. Each step was measured, controlled. He didn't run. He didn't lower his head. He didn't let anyone see the storm that raged inside him. Sarah was in the passenger seat playing on her cell phone and looked up as soon as he opened the door. Her smile instantly fell. "Marcus?" What there was. He got into the car, closed the door, and was silent for 3 seconds. Then he picked up his phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in months, a number that few people had, a number that, when it played, made things happen. David answered on the second ring. "Marcus? Man, it's been a while. All good?" "David, I need you to pull up everything about a commercial building at 847 Central Avenue. I want to know who owns it, how much it's worth, if it's for sale, and if not, how much it will cost to put it up for sale." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Marcus, are you serious?" "That's it. I need it before 8 a.m. tomorrow, and I want all the details. Debts, contracts, tenants, everything. If there is anything that can be used as leverage to force a sale, I want to know." "Okay, but can I ask why?" Marcus looked at the brightly lit building in front of him, 5 stories of Art Deco architecture, with the restaurant taking up the entire ground floor. The windows gleamed like gold teeth in the night. Inside, he could see silhouettes moving, waiters serving customers who had been deemed worthy of entry. "Because someone needs to learn that you don't judge people by what they look like," he said, his voice as hard as steel. "And I'm going to be the teacher." He hung up the phone before David could respond. Sarah looked at him, confused and a little scared. She knew that tone. I knew that expression. It was the same as when Marcus decided to leave his secure job to open his own company. The same as when he bet everything on a risky investment that no one believed in. The same as when he proved time and time again that being underestimated was just the first step to a devastating victory. "Marcus, are you sure what you're doing?" He finally looked at her. In his eyes was something she recognized. Determination. Cold. Relentless. Inevitable. "I've never been so sure of anything in my life. I'm going to buy that entire building. And when I do, I'll make sure that security guard, the manager, and everyone else who thinks they can judge people by the size of their clothes learn a lesson they'll never forget." Sarah held his hand, intertwining their fingers. She didn't say anything. It didn't need to. 10 years of marriage had taught her that when Marcus made a decision like that, nothing in the world would change his mind. What no one inside that restaurant knew, not the arrogant security guard, not the manager hiding in his office overlooking the kitchen, not the owner of the establishment toasting Dom Perignon champagne with VIP customers, was that Marcus Hale was not just a fat man humiliated at the door of a fancy restaurant. He was one of the most aggressive real estate investors on the East Coast. At age 25, he had transformed a modest inheritance of $50,000 into an empire worth $340 million. His firm, Hale Capital Group, was known for three things: sharp investing, relentless trading, and a frightening ability to turn tables when no one expected it. And when Marcus decided to buy something, he always succeeded. The night had just begun, but for Le Jardin d'Or, the clock was already counting down the final minutes of an era. Inside the restaurant, the manager, a thin man with a thin mustache named Philippe Moreau, adjusted his tie as he greeted a couple of customers. He didn't know that at that very moment his world was about to collapse, and all because of a man he never had the courage to look in the eye. If you're enjoying this story of comeback and righteous revenge, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what comes next will leave your jaw dropped. Marcus didn't sleep that night. At 7:42 the next morning, he was sitting in the 14th floor office of a glass building in Manhattan, with a cup of coffee cooling on the table and 3 computer screens illuminating his face. David had turned in the completed report at 6:15 a.m., 45 minutes before the deadline, and what Marcus read changed everything. The building where Le Jardin d'Or was located belonged to an investment fund called Sterling Properties LLC. The majority owner was a man named Richard Beaumont, 62 years old, heir to a fortune built in the hotel sector, known for collecting historic properties and transforming them into luxury businesses. The restaurant was its most precious jewel: 3 Michelin stars, 6-month waiting list frequented by celebrities, politicians, and billionaires. But there was a problem. A big, juicy, completely exploitable problem. Richard Beaumont was deep in debt. The pandemic had destroyed half of its hotels. He had bet heavily on aggressive expansions, relying on lines of credit that were now drying up. 3 of his properties were already in the process of foreclosure, and the building on Avenida Central, that beautiful, historic 5-story building, had a debt of $8.7 million to the bank. Marcus smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator who had just smelled blood in the water. He picked up the phone and called his lawyer. "Jonathan, I need you to contact the bank that holds the mortgage on Building 847 Central Avenue. Say that I am interested in taking on the debt and buying the property. Prepare an offer of $12 million, cash, closing in 72 hours. On the other end of the line, Jonathan hesitated. "Marcus, $12 million in cash, that's aggressive. Are you sure you want to do this for a restaurant?" Marcus looked out the window, seeing the city waking up below. Cars, people, lives happening without knowing that at that moment a small war was being declared. "It's not about the restaurant, Jonathan. It's about the principle." He hung up before the lawyer could question. Meanwhile, at Le Jardin d'Or, the day began like any other. Philippe Moreau, the thin manager with the thin mustache and exaggerated French accent, adjusted the tables with obsessive precision. Each fork, each knife, each glass had to be aligned exactly 3 centimeters from the edge of the table. That's how classy things worked. That's how you maintained standards. He still remembered the fat man from last night, that guy with the expensive blazer and arrogant attitude, thinking a fancy business card would change anything. Philippe had seen 1,000 guys like that, people who made money, but would never have class. I would never understand that places like Le Jardin d'Or weren't just about paying the bill. They were about belonging. And that man, with his bulging belly and heavy walk, simply didn't belong. Philippe smiled to himself as he folded a linen napkin into the shape of a swan. He had done the right thing. Mr. Beaumont always said, "Philippe, protect the image of the restaurant. Never allow mediocrity to enter through these doors." And that's exactly what he did. The security guard from the night before, a brute named Vincent, arrived for his afternoon shift and waved at Philippe. "Hey boss, that fat guy from yesterday is back?" Philippe rolled his eyes. "Of course, people like that never come back. They know when they are not welcome." Vincent laughed loudly and leaned against the wall, crossing his arms. "Dude was funny, you know. He said he was going to buy the building. Buy the building, as if that were possible." The two laughed together, not realizing that just a few blocks away, Marcus Hale was digitally signing a $12 million contract. Sarah found Marcus in the home kitchen at 9:30 a.m., stirring scrambled eggs with one hand and holding the phone with the other. He was speaking quickly in a professional tone, giving precise orders. "Yes, I want a full inspection tomorrow. Structure, plumbing, electrical, everything. And hire an independent appraiser to confirm the market value. I don't want surprises." He hung up and saw Sarah standing in the doorway, arms crossed, with that expression that meant, "We need to talk." "Marcus, are you really going to do this?" He turned off the heat and served the eggs on 2 plates. "It's already done. I made the offer. The bank will accept it. They have no choice. Richard Beaumont is broken and doesn't know it yet." Sarah sat at the table but did not touch the food. "Baby, I understand that you are hurt. I understand it was horrible. But spending $12 million for a restaurant, that's not revenge. This is crazy." Marcus sat in front of her and held Sarah's hands firmly. "It's not revenge. It's justice. And it's not just about me. It's about all the times someone like me, someone like us, has been judged, humiliated, treated as less than human just because they don't fit into the ridiculous standard that society has invented." He took a deep breath, and Sarah saw tears forming in the corners of his eyes. "I built a company from scratch, Sarah. I employed 140 people. I pay taxes, I do charity work. I wake up every day at 5 a.m. to prove that I'm worth something. And yet, some security guard can stop me at the door of a restaurant because my belly is too big." Sarah squeezed his hands. I know, my love. Then let me do this. Let me show them that underestimating someone has consequences." She was silent for a long moment. Then finally, he nodded. "It's okay, but promise me one thing." "What?" "When you become the owner of that place, the first thing we do is have dinner there, together, at the best table, and I want that security guard to be forced to serve us champagne." Marcus smiled. For the first time since the night before, it was a genuine smile. Closed. 48 hours later, Richard Beaumont's phone rang. He was in his mahogany and leather office overlooking Central Park, signing contracts and pretending his life wasn't falling apart. When he saw the unknown number on the screen, he almost didn't answer, but something made him press the green button. "Hello? Mr. Beaumont. My name is Jonathan Weiss. I am an attorney at Hale Capital Group. I'm calling to inform you that my client has just acquired the mortgage on his building at 847 Central Avenue. This means that from now on the debt of $7 million is with him, and he's demanding payment in full within 30 days or immediate foreclosure of the property." Richard felt the blood drain from his face. "What? This is impossible. The bank can and did. The transaction was completed this morning. I'm emailing the documentation now. Good afternoon, Mr. Beaumont." The call dropped. Richard stared at the phone, his entire body shaking. He didn't have $8.7 million. There wasn't even half of that available. And if I lost that building, I would lose Le Jardin d'Or. You would lose your reputation. I would lose everything. He frantically dialed Philippe. "Philippe, we need to talk. Now." Meanwhile, Marcus was in his office, looking at the same view he had seen 2 days before. But now everything seemed different. He opened the signed contract on the computer screen and read the last line. Owner, Marcus Hale. David entered the room with a bottle of whiskey and 2 glasses. "So Marcus, you did it. The building is yours. And now?" Marcus took the glass, but didn't drink. He swirled the amber liquid thoughtfully. "Now David, we'll go there and have a very, very polite chat with the manager and security at Le Jardin d'Or." David smiled. "This will be fun." Marcus finally took a sip and felt the whiskey burn his throat. Fun is not the word I would use. He looked out the window, watching the city move. "I would say it will be educational." Marcus entered Le Jardin d'Or for the second time in 3 days, but this time he wasn't alone. At his side walked Jonathan Weiss, his lawyer, a man with wire-rimmed glasses and a leather briefcase, who carried enough documents to bury any legal argument. Behind them, David maintained a neutral expression, but his eyes sparkled with anticipation. It was noon on a Thursday. The restaurant was empty except for 2 waiters arranging tables and Philippe Moreau, who walked across the room with a clipboard in hand, checking the wine supply. When he saw Marcus, Philippe froze. For a second, just a second, The manager looked like a deer in headlights. Then he regained his composure, forced a professional smile, and walked towards them with hurried steps. Sir, I'm sorry, but the restaurant doesn't open for lunch until 12:30. If you have a reservation, I didn't come to make a reservation, Philippe. Marcus interrupted, his voice calm and polite. I came to talk to you and Mr. Richard Beaumont. Is he here? Philippe blinked, confused. How do you know my name? And Mr. Beaumont does not receive visitors without prior appointment. If you want to make an appointment, Jonathan stepped forward and held out a folder. My name is Jonathan Weiss, attorney representing Mr. Marcus Hale. I am here to inform you that as of this morning, my client is the new owner of this building. This includes the restaurant where you work. Philippe's smile disappeared like ice in the sun. What? This doesn't make sense. Mr. Beaumont never mentioned. Mr. Beaumont didn't know, Marcus said, taking a step closer. But now you know, and I imagine he's desperate to talk to me, so I'll make it easy. Call him, now. Philippe looked at Marcus, then at Jonathan, then at David. He was pale. His hands shook slightly as he picked up his cell phone and dialed a number with uncertain fingers. Mr. Beaumont, sorry to bother you, but there's a man here. He says he is the new owner of the building. He wants to talk to you. There was a pause. Then Richard's voice boomed from the other end, loud enough for Marcus to hear. Where were you last night, Philippe? I tried to call you 10 times. Philippe swallowed. I was with my family, sir. My phone was on silent. Shut up and give him the phone. Felipe handed the device to Marcus with shaking hands. Marcus took out his cell phone and put it to his ear, keeping his eyes fixed on the manager. Mr. Beaumont, pleasure. My name is Marcus Hale. On the other side, Richard was breathing as if he had run a marathon. What do you want? Money? I'm willing to negotiate. We can make a deal. I don't want money, Marcus said, his voice icy. I want justice, and I want you to come here, personally, in an hour. If you don't come, I'll start the eviction process immediately and turn this place into a warehouse. He hung up before Richard could respond and handed the phone back to Philippe, who was as white as a sheet. Marcus walked to the center of the room, looking around. The polished wooden walls, the crystal chandeliers, the tables were perfectly arranged. Everything was beautiful, everything was expensive, everything was designed to make people feel special. Except special came with an invisible price. You had to look right. He turned to Philippe. Do you remember me? Philippe opened his mouth but couldn't speak. I'll refresh your memory. Tuesday night, I had a reservation. I came with my wife to celebrate our wedding anniversary. And your security guard, where is he, by the way? Philippe swallowed. Vincent only works at night. Excellent. Tell him to come here too. 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's not a request. Marcus walked over to one of the empty tables and pulled out a chair, sitting down calmly. Jonathan and David accompanied him, occupying the chairs next to him. Now, Philippe, let's wait here until Mr. Beaumont arrives. And while we wait, you will explain to me exactly what the clientele standard of this establishment is. Philippe was sweating. Sir, I didn't mean to offend. We just follow Mr. Beaumont's guidelines about maintaining a certain image. Image, Marcus repeated, savoring the word. And what is the image? Skinny people? Beautiful people? People who fit into a ridiculous standard invented by people who think appearance is worth more than character? Philippe didn't respond. He was looking at the ground, his shoulders slumped. David leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms. You know, Philippe, I've done some interesting research over the last few days. I discovered that this restaurant has 3 Michelin stars, a 6-month waiting list, and annual revenue of $4.2 million. But do you know what else I discovered? Felipe looked up suspiciously. That you have been sued 4 times in the last 2 years for discrimination. 3 cases were resolved out of court. 1 is still in progress. And they all of them, involved people turned away at the door because they didn't fit the mold. Felipe turned pale. I didn't know that. Of course not, Marcus said, his voice hard. Because you just followed orders, right? He just did his job. Like everyone who participates in a rotten system and pretends they have no responsibility. An hour later, Richard Beaumont stormed into the restaurant. He was a tall, thin man with slicked back gray hair and an impeccable 3-piece suit. But his face was red, sweaty, and his eyes revealed barely concealed panic. You, he said, pointing at Marcus. You can't do that. I have rights. I have contracts with suppliers, with employees, with... You have a debt of $8.7 million. Marcus interrupted, slowly getting up. And now this debt is to me. You have 30 days to pay, or I take the building and everything in it. Richard took 2 steps forward, his face contorted with rage. This is extortion. I will sue you. What are you going to do? Marcus asked, his voice low but full of venom. Are you going to stop me at the door? Are you going to say that I don't have the right standard? Are you going to judge me by the size of my belly? Richard opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Marcus took a step closer. Tuesday night, I came here with my wife. It was our wedding anniversary, 10 years. I had a confirmed reservation, and do you know what happened? His security guard blocked me from the door because, according to him, I didn't fit into the customer standard. Richard blinked, confused. I didn't know. That was a mistake by— It wasn't a mistake, Marcus interrupted. It was a policy that you created, that you defended, and that you profited from. And now you're going to pay for it. Richard looked around desperately, looking for a way out, but there were none. He was cornered. What do you want? He asked, voice finally breaking. Money? A percentage of the restaurant? A public apology? What? Marcus smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. I want you to understand something very simple, Richard. You built an empire by judging people by their appearance, treating human beings as decorative objects, and now, that empire is over. He turned to Jonathan. Start the eviction process. I want everyone out of here in 15 days. Richard fell to his knees. Please, please, do not do that. This restaurant is all I have. My reputation, my life, everything is here. Marcus looked at him, really looked. He saw the despair. He saw the fear. He saw a man who, for the first time in his life, was being judged by something other than his bank account. And he felt nothing. You should have thought about that before deciding who deserves to walk through your door and who doesn't. He waved to David and Jonathan, and the three walked toward the exit. But before leaving, Marcus stopped and turned around one last time. Oh, and Philippe, you're fired. Collect your things and leave until the end of the day. The door closed behind them with a final sound. Inside the restaurant, Richard Beaumont remained on his knees, surrounded by the silence of a crumbling empire, and Marcus outside took a deep breath for the first time in 3 days, because he knew that sometimes the best revenge is not destroying someone. It's simply showing them what it's like to be judged for something they can't control. Try again. Be and continue 3 to 5 consistently. Marcus entered Le Jardin door for the second time in 3 days, but this time he wasn't alone. At his side walked Jonathan Weiss, his lawyer, a man with wire-rimmed glasses and a leather briefcase who carried enough documents to bury any legal argument. Behind them, David maintained a neutral expression, but his eyes sparkled with anticipation. It was noon on a Thursday. The restaurant was empty except for 2 waiters arranging tables and Philippe Moreau, who walked across the room with a clipboard in hand, checking the wine supply. When he saw Marcus, Philippe froze. For a second, just a second, the manager looked like a deer in headlights. Then he regained his composure, forced a professional smile, and walked towards them with hurried steps. Sir, I'm sorry, but the restaurant doesn't open for lunch until 12:30. If you have a reservation, I didn't come to make a reservation, Philippe, Marcus interrupted, his voice calm and polite. I came to talk to you and Mr. Richard Beaumont. Is he here? Philippe blinked, confused. How do you know my name? And Mr. Beaumont does not receive visitors without prior appointment. If you want to make an appointment, Jonathan stepped forward and held out a folder. My name is Jonathan Weiss, attorney representing Mr. Marcus Hale. I am here to inform you that as of this morning, my client is the new owner of this building. This includes the restaurant where you work. Philippe's smile disappeared like ice in the sun. What? This doesn't make sense. Mr. Beaumont never mentioned— Mr. Beaumont didn't know, Marcus said, taking a step closer. But now you know, and I imagine he's desperate to talk to me, so I'll make it easy. Call him, now. Philippe looked at Marcus, then at Jonathan, then at David. He was pale. His hand shook slightly as he picked up his cell phone and dialed a number with uncertain fingers. Mr. Beaumont? Sorry to bother you, but there's a man here. He says he is the new owner of the building. He wants to talk to you. There was a pause. Then Richard's voice boomed from the other end, loud enough for Marcus to hear. Where were you last night, Philippe? I tried to call you 10 times. Philippe swallowed. I was with my family, sir. My phone was on silent. Shut up and give him the phone. Philippe handed the device to Marcus with shaking hands. Marcus took out his cell phone and put it to his ear, keeping his eyes fixed on the manager. Mr. Beaumont, pleasure. My name is Marcus Hale. On the other side, Richard was breathing as if he had run a marathon. What do you want? Money? I'm willing to negotiate. We can make a deal. I don't want money, Marcus said, his voice icy. I want justice, and I want you to come here, personally, in an hour. If you don't come, I will start the eviction process immediately and turn this place into a parking lot. He hung up before Richard could respond and handed the phone back to Philippe, who was as white as a sheet. Marcus walked to the center of the room, looking around. The polished wooden walls, the crystal chandeliers, the tables were perfectly arranged. Everything was beautiful. Everything was expensive. Everything was designed to make people feel special. Except special came with an invisible price. You had to look right. He turned to Philippe. Do you remember me? Philippe opened his mouth but couldn't speak. I'll refresh your memory. Tuesday night. I had a reservation. I came with my wife to celebrate our wedding anniversary. And your security guard, where is he, by the way? Philippe swallowed. Vincent only works at night. Excellent. Tell him to come here too. 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's not a request. Marcus walked over to one of the empty tables and pulled out a chair, sitting down calmly. Jonathan and David accompanied him, occupying the chairs next to him. Now, Philippe, let's wait here until Mr. Beaumont arrives, and while we wait, you're going to tell me exactly how this customer pattern works. Philippe was sweating. He glanced at the door, as if considering running away, but his feet didn't move. Sir, I just follow the guidelines. Mr. Beaumont has always said that this restaurant represents elegance, sophistication, a certain level, Marcus repeated, letting the word hang in the air like toxic smoke. And I didn't have that level, even with a confirmed reservation, even wearing a $2,000 blazer and driving a car that's worth more than you earn in 3 years. Philippe looked at the floor. It's not about money, sir, and about image. Image, Marcus said, his voice getting harder. You mean it's about me being fat? The silence that followed was deafening. David leaned forward, elbows on the table, and looked at Philippe with almost scientific curiosity. You know, Philippe, I did some research over the last few days. I discovered fascinating things about this establishment. For example, in the last 2 years, you have been sued 4 times for discrimination. 3 cases resolved with million-dollar settlements out of court, 1 still in progress. Philippe turned even paler. And do you know what all these cases have in common? David continued. People turned away at the door. People who had reserves, money, everything was fine, but they didn't fit the pattern. A black woman, a man in a wheelchair, an interracial couple, and at least 6 overweight people. Philippe closed his eyes. I didn't know about all these cases. You just followed orders, Marcus added. It's always like that, isn't it? No one is ever responsible. You followed orders. The security guard followed orders. And Mr. Beaumont? Well, he was just protecting the brand. Marcus stood up and walked to the wall, where there were framed photos of celebrities who had dined there. Actors, politicians, business people, all thin, all within the standard. Do you know what the problem is with places like this, Philippe? Marcus said, still facing away. It's not just discrimination. It's arrogance. The absolute certainty that you can decide who deserves dignity and who does not, as if they were gods instead of waiters serving expensive food to insecure people who need a luxury restaurant to feel important. He turned around, and his eyes were red. Do you have any idea how many times in my life I have been judged before I even opened my mouth? How many doors have closed? How many opportunities have disappeared because someone looked at me and decided I wasn't worth it? Philippe didn't respond. He was crying. I built a company from scratch. Marcus continued, his voice breaking. I employed more than 100 people. I pay fair wages. I make donations. I wake up at 5 in the morning every single day to prove that I'm worth something. And still, a security guard can stop me at the door of a restaurant because my belly is too big for the aesthetics of the place. Jonathan placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder but said nothing. The door opened with force. Richard Beaumont stormed in, messy gray hair, rumpled suit, face red with anger and despair. He was no longer the dapper photo mogul. He was a desperate man on the verge of collapse. You, he shouted, pointing at Marcus. You can't do that. I have contracts, suppliers, employees. You can't just... I can, Marcus interrupted, his voice icy. And I already did. You're $8.7 million in debt, Richard, and this debt is now mine. 30 days to pay, or I take the building and everything in it. Richard took 2 unsteady steps forward. This is extortion. I will sue you. I will destroy you. Are you going? Marcus asked, tilting his head. With what money? With what reputation? You're broken, Richard. Your hotels are running. Your investors abandoned you. And this restaurant, it's all that's left of your empire of lies. Richard opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Marcus took a step closer and his presence filled the entire room. Tuesday night I came here. It was my wedding anniversary. 10 years with the woman I love. I had a reservation. I had everything right. And do you know what happened? Richard looked at Philippe, then at Marcus, panic growing in his eyes. Your security guard barred me from the door. He said I didn't fit the customer standard. He looked at my stomach like I was trash and said this place was for classy people. Richard swallowed. I didn't know. That was a mistake. A misunderstanding. You always knew, Marcus cut in, because it was your policy. You created this. You profited from it. You've built an empire on judging people by their appearance and deciding who deserves to be treated like a human. He moved even closer, until he was just inches from Richard's face. And now you're going to pay for it. Richard fell to his knees. Please, please do not do that. This restaurant is all I have left. My whole life is here. I beg you. Marcus looked at him, really looked. He saw the despair. He saw the fear. He saw a powerful man reduced to nothing, and he didn't feel sorry. You should have thought about that before deciding that some people are worth less than others. He waved at Jonathan. Start dumping. 15 days. Richard sobbed. Marcus walked to the door but stopped before leaving. He turned around one last time. Oh, Philippe, you're fired. Grab your things and leave by the end of the day. The door closed. From outside, Marcus took a deep breath. The afternoon air felt cleaner. Sarah was waiting in the car, and when she saw him, she got out and ran to him. And then, Marcus hugged his wife and buried his face in her shoulder. He finished. But even as he spoke, he knew he wasn't quite finished, because in 15 days he would return to that place, and this time it would be like the owner. 15 days later, Marcus returned to Le Jardin d'Or, but this time he wasn't alone, and it wasn't discreet. At 6:30 p.m. on a Friday, the restaurant's busiest time, 3 black vans stopped in front of the building. Lawyers, accountants, auditors, and a bailiff came out of them, carrying documents sealed in white envelopes, and Marcus, walking ahead of everyone, wearing the same navy blue blazer from the night he was humiliated. The restaurant doors were open. Inside, the room was nearly full, tables occupied by executives, local celebrities, couples dressed in expensive clothes, the discreet sound of cutlery against china, elegant conversations, restrained laughter.